Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar today on OWEB's Klamath County Drought Resilience Grant Offerings. We're going to first start with introduction for OWEB staff, and then we'll get started. I'm Amy Charette, Drought Programs Coordinator here at OWEB, and I'll be giving an overview of the Klamath County Drought Resilience Technical Assistance and Stakeholder Engagement Grant Offering.
Good morning, everybody. Heidi Hartman, Drought Program Specialist with OWEB, and I will be giving an overview of the Restoration Grant Program for Drought Resilience in Klamath County.
Good morning, folks. I'm Renee Davis. I am the Fire, Klamath, and Drought Programs Manager at OWEB. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Teresa DeBartoleben with OWEB, and I'm the Drought Program Specialist, and I'll be monitoring the chat box, so feel free to add any questions that you have in the box. Thanks.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Max Chabra with OWEB, and I'm Drought Grant Support.
Thank you. So if you have any additional follow-up questions after the webinar, please reach out to myself for questions on technical assistance and stakeholder engagement grant offerings, and then Heidi Hartman for the restoration grant offering. So we are recording this webinar and we will post it on the YouTube channel after the wrap up today. So if there are folks who could not join, they'll still be able to see the overview and any questions that you may ask. We have 2 grant offerings to go over. I'll start with the technical assistance and stakeholder engagement, and then Heidi will go over the restoration grant offering. We'll walk through program materials, and that includes program guidance and budget guidance. Everyone will be muted and off camera, so please use the question and answer function. Those questions will come to OWEB staff. We'll compile the questions. Teresa will read them off, and then we'll respond with the answers. And if there are any questions that are more specific to a location or a scenario, we may propose to follow up with you later so that we can get a better understanding of the question before responding. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen starting with OWEB's drought relief webpage. Give me 1 second. Okay, so you should see drought relief grant webpage.
We can see it.
Great, thank you. This website outlines the background information on the drought relief funding and several grant programs that are administered through OWEB under this drought relief funding. During the 2021 special session, the legislature provided general funds to support activities focusing on drought relief and resilience. We have several offerings, and at the bottom of this page, you will see specifics on the drought resilience grants for Klamath County. So down here, we have these 2 grant offerings. The program provides funding to support drought resilience and water use reduction projects. The intent is that these projects should aim to promote long-term solutions rather than short-term actions related to drought resilience. Improving drought resilience is enhancing the ability to respond to and recover from drought conditions. And for the purpose of this grant program, a long-term solution is an action that will improve resilience and lessen drought impacts to the watershed for at least 10 years. So we have 2 documents to help you as applicants navigate each drought resilience grant program. We'll go through first the program guidance and then the budget guidance specific for this grant program. This is broken up on the website into 2 blocks of materials. So the first one is the technical assistance and stakeholder engagement grant program materials. And then next is the restoration grant program materials. You can also find on the webpage linked down here, the general online application guidance for OWEB grants and the general OWEB budget guidance. Below that, we have specifics on this grant cycle. Both drought resilience grant offerings opened last week on September 1st, and the deadline is October 17th. And you also have our contact information listed down here as well. So the first document that I'm going to go through under the technical assistance and stakeholder engagement grant program materials is the program overview and guidance document. Make this a little bit bigger. So again, this has information on legislative intent and program structure. The eligible area is all of Klamath County, and for awarded grants and eligible activities, we can provide retroactive funding back to December 14th of 2021. That is when the bill that funded this grant program was signed into law. For timing of these designated general funds, the lifespan is relatively short. So we have until June 30th of 2023 to utilize this funding. So that's not only obligated, but fully expended by the end of the biennium. There is space in the application for you to describe what you can complete by that date and any timing or implementation challenges that you may expect. We have grant awards capped at $75,000 per application. Smaller funding requests are welcome, and the final funding level for awarded grants will depend on the number of proposed projects recommended for funding following the technical review. The total grant funding OWEB has available for the Klamath County Drought Resilience Programs is a minimum of $730,750, including awards that are made under the Klamath County Drought Resilience Restoration Grant Program that Heidi will cover after this. So eligible applicants are standard for other OWEB grants, and that information can be found in the online application guidance. It includes local or tribal governments, nonprofit organizations, and institutes for higher education. So for this specific grant offering, we have 3 eligible activity types. This first one is technical design and engineering. So engineering or survey work to develop a technical design for a drought resilience project. And throughout all of these eligible application types, the goal is to work towards a long-term solution that will improve resilience and lessen drought impacts for the watershed for at least 10 years. This next application type is assessment and planning, which includes planning activities such as looking at alternatives for future drought resilience projects, or implementation plans such as a focused action to move an operation towards drought resilience, or an irrigation water management plan. And there may be, we have other planning activities listed here. There may be another planning activity that we don't have listed. And if there is, we ask that you just reach out to us to determine if the activity type is an eligible activity. Our third application type that we have is stakeholder engagement. So this is the purpose of this project would be to communicate and engage with landowners, organizations, and community about the need for, feasibility, or benefits of a specific drought resilience project. And we're hoping that engagement, the stakeholder engagement, would lead directly to an on-the-ground drought resilience project. Education projects are not eligible for funding. And as we've mentioned before, this is a relatively short window. So we're asking that you describe how you will implement these actions in a relatively short time frame. For required match, 25% match is encouraged, but we'll accept less than that. And then here for quarterly billing, because of legislative interest in general fund dollars being used for drought relief and the short time frame, we are requiring that applicants do quarterly billing and reporting. And so this should not be cumbersome, just an update on the project status along with billing. And depending on the project, there could be a potential for a post-implementation status report. The grant cycle, as we mentioned before, is here along with OWEB standard language of recommending that you submit your application 24 hours prior to the deadline. It helps with any bugs or anything that may happen when you are going to submit that application. And as you work through the application, please read all the guidance documents and the blue I buttons that you'll see next to questions in the application. There could be additional information in there for what may be required and in your answer to specific questions. For the grant program evaluation process, evaluation criteria for this offering is based on the technical assistance and the stakeholder engagement grant administrative rules. We're asking the technical team to also look at how this project aligns with priorities identified in the legislative intent for funding this program, including long-term drought resilient solution and water use reduction, organizational capacity, and coordination among local partners in Klamath County. And then for informational gathering only, the applicant should include questions and answers on tribal coordination, equity, and climate considerations. Grant applications will be reviewed by a technical team with award decisions made approximately 4 to 6 weeks after the application deadline. We're trying to move as quickly as possible because of the tight time frame. There are also links at the bottom of this guidance document for OWEB's online application guidance, which has a bunch of additional information and multiple video resources. So I'll stop and see if we have any questions on the program guidance for technical assistance and stakeholder engagement. Okay, I don't see.
No questions yet.
No questions? Okay, thanks. So I will go back to the website, and then we're going to go down here to this guidance on budgeting in grants, the GOBIG specific for this grant offering. It's a little bit bigger. So this is a supplemental fiscal document, and it is specific to this grant offering. This link right here will take you to the standard fiscal document for OWEB, the GOBIG document. The eligible activity types are also included here. And then the main part of this document is any budget differences from regular OWEB grants. And so, as we mentioned before, expenses for eligible costs and activities is retroactive to December 14th. All receipt requirements remain the same as other OWEB grants. Promotional items and stakeholder engagement activities to promote drought resilience projects are allowed. That includes website, facility or meeting room rentals, software, food, and printing. Equipment purchases are not allowed under this grant offering, and equipment usage rates are not allowed. Post-grant costs are allowed, and that will be detailed in the grant agreement if that is something that's required. As mentioned before, grant awards are capped at $75,000 per application. And the final funding level will depend on the number of proposed projects recommended for funding following technical review. Contingencies are not allowed under this grant offering, and indirect rate costs are capped at 10%. So regardless of any other negotiated rate, if you do have a federally negotiated indirect rate, the difference between the 10% and that federally negotiated rate can be used as match. And last, we have billing. As I mentioned before, quarterly billing and progress reports will be required. There will be no advances allowed after March 31st of 2023. And again, we'll do the progress reports that we mentioned before and potential for post-implementation status reports. So that's a quick overview on the fiscal guidance. I don't see any more questions. Feel free to ask questions about this later if you have any that come up, or message us afterwards if you think of any. But next, I'll turn it over to Heidi, and she's going to cover the restoration grant program materials. Again, you can find these on the website, same overview and guidance and GOBIG budgeting questions or documents. Okay.
And just a quick reminder to everyone to put your questions in the Q&A, and we will acknowledge them. Thanks.
Thanks, Max.
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me and see my screen?
Yes, we can, Heidi.
Thank you. Once again, I'm Heidi Hartman. I'm the Drought Program Specialist with OWEB, and we're going to go through the Restoration Grant Program guidance document for drought resilience in Klamath County. A lot of the information that I will be reviewing will look familiar. A lot of it is very similar to the technical assistance and stakeholder engagement grant offering. So a lot of this will be just kind of a review. So once again, this program was funded through general funds through Senate Bill 5561 that was passed back in December 14th of 2021. And the goal of this program is really to support long-term solutions to drought resilience. And so what that really means is an action that will improve resilience and lessen drought impacts to the watershed for at least 10 years. So be thinking about that with any types of activities that you're thinking about applying for with this restoration grant offering. Once again, all the lifespan of these funds are through June 30th, 2023, and the funding must be obligated and expended during that biennium. So by the end of June 30th, 2023, we would like to get all that funding spent. And once again, if you're in Klamath County, you're eligible for the program, and the funding is retroactive back through December 14th of 2021. And the expectation of the funding really is to maximize on the ground work. And once again, the total grant funding for this program is shared with the Stakeholder Engagement and Technical Assistance grant offering for Klamath County, and that total is $750,000. Grant awards are going to be capped at $250,000 per application for the restoration program. And of course, you can always come in at a smaller funding request. And we'll go over the GOBIG, which is the budget guidance document specific to this program after we go through the guidance document. Just to review, there are a suite of eligible activities that this program is looking to support. And it needs to kind of be in sync with the legislative intent, which is to, once again, improve long-term drought resilience, so that an action that you're looking at least 10 years of benefit to the watershed, and water use reduction. So the list of eligible activities are a lot to have to do with irrigation, water management. So we're looking at, sprinkler conversions, updating irrigation infrastructure, tailwater recovery systems, land leveling. Land leveling, you must be able to show a water conservation benefit. Soil moisture monitoring, conversion to drought resistant crops or forage, conversion to dry land ag. And once again, there may be some other activities that aren't listed here that may be eligible. Please check in with myself or Amy to make sure that that is going to be an eligible activity prior to applying. And then a caveat to that, all irrigation water management activities must include a totalizing flow meter as part of the proposed project. Once again, same match requirements. We encourage 25%. However, applications with less than 25% match will be accepted. And then we also have the same type of quarterly billing and reporting requirements. So you're going to quarterly billing and reporting, and then there will be annual post-implementation status reporting required for the restoration grant program. Once again, the grant cycle opened on September 1st, and it also closes at 5 p.m. on October 17th. Grant decisions will hopefully be made within 4 to 6 weeks. Not grant decisions, award decisions will be made within 4 to 6 weeks of that October 17th deadline. And once again, we do encourage you to try to get your application within in at least 24 hours in advance to make sure that if there are any issues that we can actually address them and make sure that you get your application in on time. And become familiar with these guidance documents and make sure that you pay attention to these I buttons in the online application. There's a lot of information in those I buttons that aren't covered in the actual text of the application that may expand on the questions that are answered. So that's very important. And then once again, the grant evaluation process. We will be evaluating these applications based on OWEB's restoration grant administrative rules and criteria outlined in those rules. Ooh, pardon me, let me go back. Here we are. And basically, the expectations for these grant applications is, once again, the priorities need to align with the legislative intent. So water use reduction, long-term drought resilience actions, the capacity to actually complete the project in a limited time frame, and coordination among local partners within the county. Also, information gathering we'll ask questions about travel coordination, climate considerations, and equity. And we will also have a technical review team that will review these applications and determine funding. Additional resources can be found, online application guidance, the OGMIS, the OWEB grant management systems, and then also a lot of training videos on how to use our online system and whatnot. So if you have any questions with that. And then once again, here's a link to our web page, and then myself or Amy can address any questions that you may have about eligibility or any other grant program questions. And with that, do we have any questions on the restoration
No.
guidance document?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we're shifting gears and we're going to review the GOBIG, which is the guidance document for budgeting for this specific program for the Klamath County Drought Resilience Restoration Grant Program. As Amy did say, this is a supplemental document to OWEB's guidance guidance on budgeting and grants. So the overarching GOBIG document, this is a document that's supplemental to that and reviews eligibility requirements specific to the restoration program for Klamath County. So once again, this is another review of the eligible activities. I'm not going to go through that again since we just went through it on the guidance document. And I'm just going to scroll down here to the budget differences. So this is what separates this grant program from other grant programs. Once again, eligible costs and activities are retroactive back to December 14th, 2021. And all receipt requirements remain the same as any other OWEB grant. Grants are capped at $250,000 per application. Contingencies are not allowed. And promotional items are also not allowed. So things like, stakeholder engagement activities or websites or food purchase, printing, those types of things. This is strictly for on the ground implementation type projects. Equipment purchase is allowed. However, we will evaluate the need for that equipment purchase as a technical team when the application comes in. Equipment usage rates also are allowed, and indirect costs, the same applies to the restoration program as applies to the stakeholder engagement and technical assistance. Indirect costs are capped at 10%. And post-grant costs are allowed to cover the reporting requirements. Okay, and then going down to billing, once again, quarterly billing is required. You can, of course, bill more frequently, and advances are allowed through March 31st, 2023. And once again, the funding really needs to be expended by the end of the biennium, so June 30th, 2023. And we will have, like I said, post-implementation status reporting at the end of the grant. So with that, any questions on the budgeting document for the restoration program?
I'm not seeing any questions yet.
Okay. I can stop sharing. If there's no questions, like Amy had said, if you do have questions as you're working through the grant application or reviewing the guidance documents and questions pop up, feel free to reach out to us as a resource. We're happy to kind of walk you through this process. We realize this is a little bit different than open solicitation. So happy to answer any questions that come up before the deadline. And any questions popping up in the Q&A?
There are still no questions.
Okay. Should we conclude the webinar then, if we don't have any questions? Okay, thank you everybody for attending. We appreciate your time.
Sorry, there's a question that came in.
Okay,
and
wonderful.
The question is from Robert, and he would like to know, how do we apply for the grant?
Oh, okay.
Is it an online application?
Yes, Robert, it is an online application. And let me share the website with you. I think we have a link for, here we go. Oh, that's guidance. Do we have a link on this particular website for applications, Amy? You would probably know.
It is in the online application guidance. So let me,
Okay, I'll stop sharing.
yeah.
Oh, I already did.
Let's see. If you, yeah, do you want to stop sharing or click on that online application guidance? And then if you scroll down, so that's on the website, it's also in our documents. And then if you scroll down to, I think it's page 2, there is right there. There is how to apply for, oh, keep going. Oh, Heidi, you're muted.
I was going to say it might be easier for you to take over just because you know where it's at. Oh, here we go. Right
Here you
here,
go.
folks. So this link is also, I believe, in the guidance document that we just reviewed, and I apologize for not clicking on that and walking through that process. But here's the link to the online application. And if you're not registered with OWEB to apply for an application, you will need to go through that process. This walks you through how to do that. Anything else you want to add, Amy?
No, that's great.
Did that answer your question, Robert? Do we have any other questions?
Robert said, yes, he found the information.
Okay, wonderful.
And then Renee, was there anything you wanted to add to that?
Nope.
Okay.
Heidi and Amy covered it. Thank you.
Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, this concludes the webinar. Like I said, we appreciate your time and attendance. And don't hesitate to reach out to anyone on the team if you have any questions as you're working through the application process.
Thank you.